let's talk about the worst trip that I've ever been on. It started as most trips for me did back in 2017, just searching for the cheapest plane tickets that I could possibly find. And those often ended up going to countries and places that people didn't really, go very often. This particular one was from Nashville, Tennessee, with overnight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and then on to Aruba. And I didn't know much about Aruba except for the Beach Boys song where it's mentioned. And so I got on the plane and stopped in Fort Lauderdale, stayed with my friend Elliot, who a few weeks before had asked if he could come to Aruba with me, which I was stoked on. Like, I was happy to have him come. So we fly to Aruba, and like I didn't know, and most people don't know about Aruba, is it's mostly like a desert island. Cactuses and wild donkeys and random stuff. And there are beaches and there are nice resorts, but those are in one particular section of Aruba. And the island is 20 miles long by 6 miles wide at the widest point. So it's not very big. It's really small. It's 69 square miles total, which is like 180 square kilometers. So really small island, and we spent the first few days getting in our rental car, driving up and down the island, finding cool spots to explore, finding abandoned places. We found this cool abandoned tunnel that we crawled into and saw a bunch of crabs in, and walking up and down this abandoned tunnel. That was super fun. We were driving one day, and Elliot spotted this torn down building over on the side of the road. It was like inside these mangrove forests, and he was like, oh, we gotta go there. So I don't remember if it was that day or the next day, we decided to go over the guardrail of the road and then go through the mangroves, whatever we found there. So we went through this abandoned, torn down building, and we got to this just torn up boardwalk. Holes in it everywhere, wood rotting away, obviously not used in a very long time, probably would not be used for a very long time after that, if ever. And there were mosquitoes everywhere, biting us all over. And we're in Aruba, so we're both wearing like board shorts, maybe a shirt, maybe a tank top. But we walk through this area and we come out to the other side of the mangroves, and there's this cool, broken down pier, goes out to this building that looks kind of like a boat. It's a big concrete building. It's probably a restaurant or a bar or something, built in a shape of a boat to look like a boat sort of thing. And we sat out there and we watched the sunset and hung out and talked and explored it a little bit. And then the sun went down and it was time to go back. So we went back along this completely torn down, abandoned, it was just concrete bits. We walked through the water, there were concrete bits coming out of the water, and that was what was left of this pier to get back to the mangroves, back to the boardwalk, back to the car. And as you got closer to the mangroves, and then since it wasn't as hot anymore, the mosquitoes were out in full force, biting us all over. We get to the mangroves and Elliot just climbs up the thing real fast and books it away down the boardwalk, just because we didn't want to get eaten alive. And I went to do that and I stepped on something and I punctured a hole in my foot. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I crawled out, slapping mosquitoes everywhere, and like ran off down this boardwalk, hitting the mosquitoes, dodging the holes in the wood and the rotten boards and whatnot, and just like keep running and running. And finally get back to the car, and I look back and there's a trail of bloody footprints all the way through this abandoned building back down the boardwalk. And so I grab my shirt, I wrap it around my foot and put tons of pressure on it to get it to stop bleeding, and then drive back to the Airbnb that we were staying at. I feel fine, I sleep, my foot's in a bit of pain, and then I fall asleep with my foot propped up on a cardboard box. And then when I wake up in the morning, I decide, all right, I'm gonna go and try to take a shower. So I got out of bed, put a little bit of pressure on my foot, and felt pain, felt blood rushing to it. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And I started to get lightheaded a little bit. So I hop to the bathroom, blood is gushing out of the bottom of my foot again. I jump into the shower, I rinse off, get the bleeding to stop, and I think everything's gonna be fine. And then I black out. And I wake up in a heap on the shower floor, and I hear Elliot outside the door asking, are you all right? Everything okay? and I think I hit my head and my elbow or something. And I like crawled out of the shower, dried myself off, pulled on my clothes, opened the door, and he's like putting on his shoes, and he's like, get in the car, we're taking you to urgent care. So I go to the urgent care. They take these Q-tips. They first put a painkiller needle in the bottom of my foot, the sole of my foot, and just stab me. And then take this Q-tip and just try to clean out. There's a ton of like, I don't know if it was oil or mud or what. There was a ton of gunk in this little wound in my foot. Not little. I mean, it was kind of little. They were just scraping stuff out. Despite the painkiller, it still hurt like the dickens. Eventually, like, they cleaned it, they wrapped it, and I think I borrowed some crutches from our Airbnb host, and we went back to the Airbnb. I had to spend the next few days lying in bed, doing nothing, because all I could do was get up and hop to the bathroom to use the bathroom, and that was it. Even with the crutches, there was just so much pain, and it was awful. I ended up binge watching all of Breaking Bad, so I finished that, so that was great, I guess. The downside was that I couldn't go anywhere, and after a few days I started feeling a bit better. I could manage the pain a little bit better, and I was able to go out and fly my drone and get some last clips of Aruba to remember it by, hopefully to have at least a little bit of a fond memory of how beautiful the island was in and of itself. I don't regret going to Aruba. I don't regret going to see that pier. I think if anything, that injury taught me that I really have to embrace and appreciate every day that I'm traveling, because you never know when you're gonna have to spend 5 out of the 10 days of a trip stuck in an apartment watching Netflix. I wonder if I still have the scar on my foot. Hold on, let's check. Yep, still have a scar down there.